Good morning, class. This is April Bailey. So before I begin telling the story, I first wanted to go over my introduction and the protocols about this story. So I first heard this story a few months ago when I got a book from the library for my son, who's 3. It was called A Promise is a Promise by Robert Munch. And it was about the Qalupalik. And it was a wonderful story. And at the end of the book, he had information on where the story comes from. So I did some more research and I just fell in love with the story. So it was traditionally from Inuit culture on the Arctic, and it's been told several times, including from another book. It was written by Alicia Qalupalik, who's a Inuk author and storyteller. And so because this story has been published and told on videos and books, it's okay for me to tell. However, if someone just told me this story and it had not been published, I would need to ask permission to tell it. And a lot of the time it's not okay to retell a story that you've heard. So you need to always make sure you have permission to tell a story first. So in this case, it's been published, so I am going to tell it. So a few things that are in the story. So an Okay, so going over a few terms that are in the book. So an amati is a parka traditionally worn by Inuit women, and it has a special compartment in the back, like a 2-section hood, and that's where they keep their children and their babies. And they can put their hood on over their head, and it keeps their babies attached to their back and also warm. And so that's a term that's used in this book. And what's another term? And I think that is it. So I'm going to jump into the story. Okay, so this reminds me of a story of Qalupalik. Qalupalik is a sea creature, half woman who lives under the sea ice in the Arctic. And she preys on young children who would not listen to their parents or their elders. So it's very important to listen to your parents and elders, or Qalupalik, who's always waiting, will come get you. So it was a nice, beautiful day on the Arctic, and Angati and his cousin Ilu were playing with their dog, and they were not listening to their parents, who had asked them to help out in the camp, helping clean up and do some chores. And Angati and Ilu said no, they don't want to help, and they decided to go down to the shoreline to play. They knew that Qalupalik could be down there, but they decided to take the chance and go down to the shoreline and play instead of helping their parents. So they run down to the shoreline and they begin to play, and before they knew it, Qalupalik comes out of the water and grabs Angati, and he pulls him into his amati and pulls him down under the water before Ilu could do anything. So Ilu runs back to camp with the dog, and he tells his parents right away, Qalupalik got Angati, Qalupalik got Angati. What should we do? So his parents go tell Angati's father, who is so sad, and he right away grabs his kayak and goes off into the water to search for his only son. So this is hunting season. And so his entire hunting spirit is dedicated to finding his only son. So he begins kayaking through the ocean, and he passes a walrus, which is a big hunting item. But he is not distracted, and he keeps kayaking, keeps looking for his son. Angati, Angati. And then he passes a polar bear, which to a brave hunter is the greatest prize of all. It's the greatest game to catch, but he's not distracted. He's focused on finding his only son. So he continues to kayak. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ocean, Qalupalik has taken Angati, and she's put him on the rocks by her area. And he's so alone and afraid. And for the first time in his life, he feels sad and alone. And he's, why did I not listen to my parents? I should have listened. Now I have to be here with Qalupalik. And every time he tried to escape, she would grab him and put him back on the rocks, for she needed him to stay young. As he grew older, she grew younger, and it helped her keep her hair nice and her skin skin's nice. So there was no escape for Angati by Qalupalik. But she knew his father was out there looking for him, and he was not giving up. He was continuing to look. Meanwhile, back at camp, Angati's mother was waiting for her husband and her only son, and she was so worried. She had heard stories of Qalupalik, and now her only son was taken for not listening to her and her husband. So the father is continuing to kayak. Now it's been a couple days. He's still looking and searching. It's been stormy and cold and dark. And he finds Angati on the shoreline. Now Qalupalik cannot interfere because she only goes after children. If there are parents nearby, she does not come and grab children, only when they're by themselves. So she waits and she watches while the father grabs Angati and pulls him into the kayak, knowing it's a long journey home. And he begins kayaking back home. It's a long journey home, and Angati is so sad. He's so happy to be with his father, but he's so sad that this happened. And they get back to camp, and he runs into his mother's arms. "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to you." And the mother is so happy and overjoyed. Her only son is returned, and her husband returned. What a joyous event. And so Angati and Ilu made a pact to always listen to their parents and their elders, and they told their parents, "We will always do the chores before we go play." And all was well in the camp, and a few years have passed, and all is happy and calm and beautiful in the camp again. But Qalupalik is always watching. Her eyes never blink. She's waiting under the water, waiting for a child who does not listen to his parents or his elders, waiting to grab the child. And that is the story of Qalupalik.